If anyone has an idea for naming, I've just gone with a very boring Inside Climbing podcast, mostly because that's what Patrick, who was the USA head of communications, was like, hey, I want to listen to that thing after we did the Seoul ones. I was like, okay, I will name it that because that's what people will search for. And it has climbing in the title, which is always good for SEO. So that helps. But if it's just us three doing things, I'm more than happy. Like, I think it'd be cool to change the name and have it be something different. For which I would like Inside the Circuit would be, I think, a cool name. There are podcasts called that already, which are unsurprisingly related to electrics and other things, which are more circuit related. But I think as we're all of us have been around comps for a while, having something related to the circuit and how it used to be called before the modern thing would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
If we can get Eddie's blessing a little bit. To,
I'm sure it'd be fine.
I'm sure it would be, since he's mostly gone off into his own world.
He actually posted about it today, didn't he? He shared a picture.
He did, yeah. No, he absolutely does not have the rights to the term circuit, but I can also imagine him being mad about it if somebody did start using it.
I might just message him and go, hey, me, Tyler, and Natalie are looking to do this thing. He was on Plastic Weekly a few times, so I'm sure he'll understand.
Yeah. As I've said, I'm now in my Eddie arc where I'm on my way out, but people still think I'm relevant and have any valuable thoughts. So I'm just being invited to podcasts for no reason. But no, title wise, I think you have a really strong name because the Instagram account has been around for now like years and people know what that means. So unless you think of something like amazing for the podcast, I wouldn't change it, but you do you.
We can keep it, and it can always change as needed.
Yeah, I was trying to think of what were the names I was thinking of for Plastic Weekly when we started, and I think it was stuff like 4+, or I really wanted to do a format called 5 on 5 off, where it was basically a debate format where it was like, okay, 5 minutes, you talk about this angle on something, okay, somebody else gets 5 minutes, and that really sucked. I think I did one with Albert Oak one time just to try it out. And 5 minutes is too long to let one person talk with no interruptions. So it's like, okay, what if we try like 5 minutes for an entire topic and we both talk in those 5 minutes? It's just a rapid fire show, but I couldn't find a way to enjoy it. So anyway, unless you want to use 4+, which again, not a creative name and terrible SEO. So.
PCL did remind me how much I like the 4+ format and how nice a format that is. Yeah, it's just nice when you have all that pressure and they know this is their last go, and everyone just put so much effort into it. Feels like, at least for world climbing, for Eurosport, it's such a tight constraint. They've just decided we want everything to be as dependent and as short as possible. So, yeah, because I think so they sometimes even cut out the very few athlete interviews they actually do as well, I think, on HBO Max.
Yeah, I want to complain about the 2 climbers at the same time thing, because it was doing my head a bit in. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I haven't watched them for a while. It felt like I just wanted the drama of the one problem at a time rather than having to focus on 2 different climbers and 2 different problems of where the schools were at. And yeah, I'll complain about that in the podcast.
Do we want to chat about climbing now?
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense talking chronological orders, like chatting about Keqiao and then Wujiang.
Yeah.
Who wants to kick off talking about Keqiao?
My biggest take about Keqiao is specifically men's number 4, and the zone was in the wrong spot. So maybe we save that a couple topics in.
That's very specific.
Really, Ben, it was nice to watch climbing again. Like it was something I watched on replay. I didn't watch any of it live. I'm not trying to do World Cups in Asia live anymore. It's just too much for me, especially during the nice weather months. It's a pleasure to especially see so many of the faces that we were excited about at the end of last year, and then of course the results and stuff left us with lots of excitement too. So it was a thumbs up competition for me all around for sure.
I think the excitement around climbing in China and Asia in general, as we know, is that really came across. Just like the fans, the audience just seemed really invested, and the athletes seemed to really like it there as well. So yeah, it was nice to start off the series in a place with so much energy and excitement.
Really nice to see the energy. It did seem like, I don't know if it's Billy or whether it's one of the other sort of channels that put a lot of effort into the creators covering and talking to climbers and producing lots of content on the side, which was ending up on Billy, and which is essentially YouTube in China. It did feel like they were putting a lot of effort in to make it a lot bigger. Like the IFSC World Climbing, they were like last year, they put a lot of effort in to start growing it. And I think getting the Billy contract was maybe the result of that. And it really showed how much energy there was. And it was really, they streamed qualifications with commentary, which was kind of crazy because that doesn't normally happen. It was all in Chinese, obviously, but it was there, which was kind of cool. It did feel like there was a lot of energy. People were really psyched for beginning of the season and having a Boulder World Cup as the beginning one as well, which is the one climbers care the most about. And so it was really cool just to see how invested everybody one was. One of the things which I find really interesting in bouldering right now is I feel like the script has been flipped between men and women's. It felt like for years and years and years, like the men's was a complete crapshoot and you had no clue who was going to win. There was no storylines, there was like no dominance. And now you have this lovely story arc of Sarata Ranraku, who is a once in generational talent, and then him, Mejdi and Do Young are all fighting it out, and it's just a lot of fun to watch. Whilst in the women's, it feels like it's becoming a bit of a crapshoot, and so many different athletes have a chance of winning. And like last year, we had 6 different winners, and it's just all a bit crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's really cool that we got the same 3 men that we had in the World Championships. Like that podium just switched up a little, but they're definitely more dominant than other athletes have been in previous seasons, whereas the women's, as you say, it used to always be so just much more predictable. But yeah, it definitely hasn't been the last season. And in Keqiao, it was like right down to the wire, like who's going to win, like which position are people in, and but it did make it quite exciting, even though it was very confusing and sort of a bit all over the place with the scores and the route setting.
This goes for Wujiang as well, but for Keqiao too. If you're excited about like the how dynamic the women's field is, Natalia Grossman's still not here. Brooke Rabitu's still not here. If you're an Ayamori fan, she's not in this finals. It could have been like there is the potential for a really like stunning field, especially if you're one of those people that believes that Yanya is now like in a dip of some kind, which I don't. But like this field is really incredible. Same thing for lead, like just a really excellent set of athletes. I was excited like 3-4 years ago when you started to see, oh, hey, there's a new generation where there's, a top 5 set of women, all of whom can medal on any particular day. And it's because they're all strong, not because, they're all just of a similar level. It's all like they're all pushing the boundary. And especially now with Annie regularly up there, Aaron up there, and Avizu, or Zelia specifically, I guess. Even Oceana McKenzie, and I mean, I am like, I'm not a hater, but I am a doubter. But seeing her back to back in 2 of these comps, it's okay. You're a regular name, like more and more frequently, and it's a cool set of climbers that we get to see, and it's nice to have that like on the men's side. The first part of the Yanya era, once the people she had conquered fell away, there was a bit of a vacuum, and it was just Yanya and whoever else. But now it feels like we've actually got a nice set of people to make the comps interesting, even though she is still the best, and these will be her only losses this season, guaranteed, 100%.
You're a Yanya stan.
Yeah, I don't know. I am simultaneously a Yanya hater and a Yanya stan somehow. But it was an excellent comp. I think it's worth just talking about that and talking about Yanya Garnbret coming in second. So I didn't watch it live. Did either of you guys watch it live? Rory, you did. What was the vibe when it became clear that she like wasn't going to win this? Was there just like a vacuum in the air of like, oh my God, the era is over, the GOAT has fallen, or was it a bit more measured and reasonable?
I think it was just chaos because like we worked out on the Discord way before Matt did, worked out that, Zelia has won if Oriane didn't top it, and Oriane got nowhere on the boulder. It was a really cool boulder for in the women's because it looked really long. Like it did one of the things in Keqiao, looked like there was long boulders. It was like the last one really looked like, because it was really compression-y, really powerful. In steep roof, it's like 6 degrees overhanging, like the Keqiao wall is one of the steeper and also one of the taller walls, I think, on the circuit. They really played with that. Supposedly, there was this theme idea, which really just means that instead of having the weird odd one out boulder in the finals, they just have another theme boulder, which meant we had a second power boulder here, which looked really like power endurance-y. Like that whole route looked like a lead boulder. it looked like a boulder which would suit lead climbers. And surprisingly, Zelia, who's also a really good lead climber, really well on it, and Yanya did really well on it. I was surprised Annie didn't do as well on it. That's the one thing out in the women's field I was surprised by. And it was really selective as well, because only Zelia and Yanya got to the zone and then topped it, and no one else got anything on the boulder.
So I watched it live as well, but I was doing something else. I was like working at the same time, not fully like following the scores. But even before then, when they showed us the boulders, I thought number one, the sort of green run and jump coordination boulder, I was like, oh, that looks easy. That looks like a sort of warm up, get into the competition thing. And then number 4, I was like, yeah, that looks like the hardest boulder. But apparently the route setters had said they thought number 1 would be the hardest. And then, yeah, I got it completely wrong because nobody obviously topped the sort of coordination boulder that looked quite easy. And then we had some tops on number 4. The slab boulder, it was a shame. It was a bit of a write-off. And the number 2 as well. Just a sort of odd mix of boulders that were like too hard, not enough tops, and then too easy.
Yeah, it was a weird kind of round because if you look at the number of tops, it's like slap bang in the middle of like the distribution of like all finals tops. But it's because you had 2 hard ones and 2 ones which are too easy. You ended up with this weird dichotomy of people complaining about the boulders being too easy, despite the fact there's only two boulders had 2 tops between them in total. The zone was too easy on the first one. It didn't really select or do that much work, which I think people felt frustrated by. And Osh was the only one who really looked close on the first boulder, in my eyes, on that coordination. And she is quite a bit taller than actually a lot of other athletes, so I'm wondering whether it was just that little bit too far. It was a long way on that second sort of part of the coordination.
Yeah.
And it should just be noted that, as just being the first World Cup of the season, it means that everybody's just trying to get their bearings. And so I don't stress too much about the route setting. Like all the boulders were basically on the mark. Like all of them were toppable. One was like a little bit too hard given, just that time limit. But no, otherwise I thought they were great boulders. Yeah, number 4 was an interesting, the final little crucible to test them on. And I think, obviously just coming down to attempts, I'm not going to read very much into the fact that Yanya comes slightly in second place. But I think it was like, I don't know, do you guys disagree that it was like a relatively well-rounded round? I'm okay with there being another power boulder in it. That works for me. Because if the first power boulder was problem number 2, which was kind of broken, that's like if I have a complaint about a boulder, it's problem number 2. I think having problem number 4 there as a actual test of, okay, you've just done 3 boulders. Can you still squeeze? Can you still keep your body together? I thought it was a great one. So I don't know. I thought a good round all together.
Yeah, I think it was good. I think they were just unlucky in that I think they expected more tops on the first one and just that move is just overcooked.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say, like, I'm getting a bit bored of like teetery slabs in the women's. Like, I just think they're very doable. Like, all the women are pretty good at them now, and most of the time it just comes down to like mental strength and having not praying that they don't have foot slips and stuff. And I just don't think it's that exciting. Like, I look at some of the men's slabs and they've got more dynamic moves like slopers. It's not always the case for the women, but I just feel like we're seeing them quite a lot where it's like, a step through on screw-ons, and I want to see more interesting like comp style slabs.
Mm-hmm.
And probably Anya does too, because they're always like relatively easy, and if she's got toe issues, I think it's definitely where her head's kind of not in the right place at the moment on those kind of technical things.
I think my only frustration is I am getting a little annoyed that boulders are getting purified into this essence of like, okay, this is, the walkthrough slab boulder and this is the power steep boulder. Like, it's not really my goal for bouldering to become gymnastics where there's discrete events of different skill sets and, all right, let's see the ladies do the bar, let's see the ladies do the beam and all that stuff. Like, that's not really what I'm hoping for. I would love it if we could get these a little mixed up so each boulder can, up to zone is that teetery slab, and then you finish off with some just like, big compression climbing. I don't know. That's the only thing that bothers me is when I can look at a boulder and distill immediately like, okay, this is a particular skill set. So yeah, when it reaches that area, then yeah, I agree completely.
It was cool to see Emma actually in a final, though. Emma Edwards.
Yeah, she did really well. Like after Prague getting rained out of the final.
She probably would have wished, because she's really, really good at coordination, wished for that coordination being a little bit easier, so she could have maybe had a chance of doing it. Because that's the problem, to your point, Tyler, is that when you get this discretized kind of styles, and if you're really good at one style, and if that boulder's slightly off, then you don't have any other chance. It would be nice if they could mix things up a bit more. Because they were trying to do at one point, they're trying to like mix styles more in order to kind of shake athletes are sort of off and kind of get them to have to adapt more, rather than just this is the style. Let's see if you can execute on this style, and kind of introduce that a bit more complexity into the boulders. When
I first saw the boulders, I was like, oh, there's a slab and there's a coordination. Like Emma will do really well. Like it's her kind of round. It's just a shame it was just didn't quite go away. But yeah, I do think more variety, like within that individual boulders themselves, would be good. So we're not sort of pigeonholing people and styles into individual boulders. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the zone on M4, Tyler?
On men's 4?
On men's 4.
Yeah, sure. I think like pretty. If you have so many of the men get that deep into the boulder completely unrewarded, and then anyone who does get to the zone manages to get to the top quite easily, I think you just put it in the wrong spot. I'm not coming at this possibly from a Mejdi stand perspective, where maybe that would have made a huge difference in his points and how he finished the comp. Pretend that's not in my justification. But yeah, it was just I think they incorrectly estimated where the crux of that boulder was going to be. They obviously didn't expect the traverse sequence to be that hard. I think the zone should have been somewhere around the little pockets and not after that, because the top was a flyer and it really didn't make much impact in separating anybody. It was all the moves down below, and I think it would have shaken up the podium a little bit. And it was one of those things where the only reason I bring it up is because as you're watching it, I feel like the climbers who earned the moves, who actually got further in this boulder, actually didn't get rewarded properly for it, and it just leaves that like little sour taste in your mouth. Honestly, most of the time you can get away with that with weird, zone placements, but because it's the final boulder and everybody now has in their heads, it's easy to do the scoring math of who's going to podium when you're on the last boulder. So when that zone is in a weird spot, everybody's doing that math and realizing like, oh, this kind of like just feels bad. It's in the wrong spot. If you did that on boulder number 1, nobody would care. But on zone 4, when everybody's dialed in and they know what everybody needs, you're watching Tomoa just like crush through move after move after move, and really difficult moves, but getting nothing for it, as it turns out. So that felt a little bit, yucky in the mouth, and would have shaken things up a little bit on the podium. But that's just that's how it goes. The people that won, obviously, super deserving. It just would have been like maybe a minor order shakeup. But yeah, that was my one tepid take from the men's final.
Because they had the same sort of thing on men's too as well, the Crimp Fest as well, and that the zone was really high. And that you actually spent quite a bit of effort to be able to go up through those crimps to get into that.
That's what I'm saying. It was in the earlier part of the round. Didn't bother me at all.
And then no one really managed to do anything at the top section on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was like a route, that green crimp. It was very old school. It's quite cool.
It was also really long. I don't know whether that's just because of the height or if it's because they're on the steeper sections, and that just led to the boulders becoming at the top end of the move kind of limit, because like world climbing has limits on how many handholds can be in a boulder, and they have recommendations on how long it should be. So it's like 12, I think, is the max, which they say a boulder should be, and 8 is like the average. 6, I think, being the lowest, something like that. And so
is it? I don't want to put anybody on the spot asking about rules, but are they counting moves or are they counting holds the way they used to?
Handholds, I believe.
They're still counting holds in the rules, yeah. So I'm guessing they're still doing the thing where multiple grips on a volume counts as a single handhold, because that was the way you'd get around it in the past. And that climb was all just, big volumes with like multiple crimps on them, right? So you're making like small ticky-tack power moves. But yeah, no, I thought it was a good, like the men's round, I thought was actually another like very good, well-rounded round for climbing. It didn't leave me like wanting anything necessarily. I enjoyed it. Good boulders and all that stuff. Yeah, nice bunch of styles. It was nice to see some climbers look cocky and excited on one boulder, and then just like, like, what did I waste all of my training season for when they get to the next boulder? It keeps it exciting and gets everybody back in the mind space of like, oh yeah, World Cups should, you can't show up with a small set of tools. Like you got to bring everything. I thought it was a good wake up round.
Yeah, and the men's also ended in the kind of the perfect way you kind of want, which is the last athlete comes out and has to top to win, which was awesome as well with Sorato. It's what we need more of. And like it's awesome just having that Sorato, Doyan, Mejdi kind of like triple, and it's having that competition, and you can kind of see them sitting like when Doyan did it the first time, did that boulder, it was after so many. This is like the one benefit which the world climbing kind of format has over something like PCL, is that you get to see so many athletes struggling on this thing, and then you have someone who's good in that style comes out and crushes it, and it just looks so impressive. And it gives you that context which you don't get when you don't have multiple athletes on the same boulder.
I was also really impressed with the Chinese climbers, Xuanpu Bai and Yufei Pan. Like, it was cool to have two home crowd guys in it, and I think there was quite a lot in the semi-finals as well. Good depth of field. But it'll be interesting to see if they do as well in other World Cups, if they're doing a full circuit or not. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was a great mix. It's a little hard mentally to think of Zhongwan Chan as like the veteran in the round, but it was great to have him there. And for a couple minutes, it looked like he would be relevant to the scores and stuff. It was cool getting to see him and Doyan climbing at the same time as well. Like, just what a great like mix of athletes. It was a fun. It felt like a change up. It felt fresh. Yeah, no complaints. And of course, always happy to see Tomoa actually like sending boulders. That feels great when he's doing that. So. Good round.
So let's move on to Wujiang. Yanya surprises everyone by coming second again. I don't know how many people would have predicted Yanya not winning a gold medal in either World Cup. I would not have been one of those people.
No.
It doesn't happen very often. I think I went and looked up her win rates, and she has like a 75% win rate since 2020, and it's like just under. If you go further back, her dominance didn't really start until like 2018 19 in terms of winning a lot of World Cups. She lost quite a few at the beginning, and surprisingly when she was on her first year or two, still she's only lost to I and now Annie in lead since 2020, and she's only lost 3 in Boulder, which is the Natalia, Zelia and Oriane. Yeah, different World Cups, all on attempts.
The world's most valuable scalp is saying you can beat Yanya in an actual competition, considering she only shows up to so many. Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
So it was, and like Annie climbed really well on that route. She was, like Yanya struggled a bit in semis. Yanya was quite far down coming out in finals. Annie clearly was a lot better in semis and deserves the win on countback. Felt that Yanya would have had a better chance of doing that top move maybe, but it did look like, I don't know what happened. It looked like she misjudged it and just completely fell off.
Yeah, I think the big last hold was like this massive sphere, and if you were underneath it, you couldn't see where the sphere rounded and where the actual hold was. So I think Yanya looked at where the foothold was and sort of estimated roughly where the good hand bit was and just didn't get it quite right. But I did think she did rush it slightly, which was a shame. And Annie, I think, did exactly the same. Like it was a weird move because it was quite blind, I think, to go to the good bit. But it's a shame as well because it was definitely, I was saying, this is a really hard route. Yanya will be happy. The bottom of the route did look quite hard, like through that section, like where Erin fell. And then it looked like it got easier on the head wall because where Annie was shaking out for ages and resting, it looked like it was too easy. You could just recover too much. And then it was kind of fine until the last move, which was a shame. But yeah, I think Yanya would have preferred a slightly harder head wall.
I think it was pretty much like an ideal ideal round to watch. I thought it was super cool. Yeah, I think Yanya on that last move, I think she rested as much as could be reasonable. Like, I don't think I've ever experienced the sensation of actually getting strength back while resting on the wall. I rest on the wall because people tell me I'm supposed to. I don't think it's ever actually worked for me. So when I just see them sitting there, I'm like, surely you're faking it. Like that can't be real. But anyway, she rested, and then she went for the finish hold with as much confidence as you can expect anybody. Like, I don't think she had any doubts in her mind that she was about to stick that with her hand, and that pull from the handhold was going to finish up the momentum to get her feet to the big purple foothold, and then it would be done. And you can see the moment where her hand, with 100% confidence, closes around the hold, but the hold is not there. It's a few inches further, and brutal finish, but that's a feeling I think most of us know from our gym climbing. And you got. And, as it turns out, it's by count back, but that's because you didn't perform on the level in the previous rounds. I'm so glad it didn't come down to time. I think that's the first lead cup of the year is always a mess for everybody remembering how scoring works. But yeah, I'm really glad it went back to count backs, because I think that's a lot more satisfying than Yanya. I don't think Yanya would be very satisfied taking this win on count back, because I think that kind of move where you're revved up for the finish, you go for it and you just make a genuine error. You could tell she wasn't very happy with that, and that was pretty painful. I don't think she would have enjoyed that win. So I think hopefully she realizes, this is what I meant by hard routes. I don't want to be able to make mistakes and walk away with easy wins and stuff. Like, this is the challenge she craves, and I think she'll be excited for the next one. Like, I think you see bloodlust Yanya for the rest of the season. Like, okay, I remember now what it feels like to lose for silly reasons, for just not giving it 110% when I have the chance. And now everybody else take a seat while I farm gold for the rest of 2026.
It's the curse of the 50th gold, it seems.
I don't understand why 50 golds matters. I don't even know what 50 golds we're counting. Is that like just World Cups? Does that include combined golds? What are we
It's just World Cups, just lead and Boulder.
I hate this. Get it out of here. 50 doesn't mean GART. Get out. Not interested.
It's good marketing.
Just lead and Boulder World Cups. So I think it's, if you count World Champs as well, she's already there, but because she's got so many World Champs in Boulder and lead. I feel it's more the fact that this is like the first, like this Olympic cycle is like the first time she's ever cared about things other than comps. And she wants to do bibliography outside in Seus. The skills you need to go and red point a really hard route are very different to the skills you need to on-site a comp climb in a lead final. I feel like a fresh Yanya is very, very hard to beat. And like the only times where she's looked like she's been beatable, I think, have been when she's either injured or tired. But it does feel like the focus is slightly off. And so the mistakes she makes, she can't just work around, and she gets caught out by them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think also like the women's field's definitely catching up to her. Like, I think that's fair to say. Like, there's just so much more depth now, and she can't afford to make these mistakes. As you said, Tyler, like, she can't, if her foot slips and she burns an attempt or she fluffs the last move, like, she might have got away with that in the past, but now it's just the women are doing, either the routes are too easy, which I think is happening sometimes on Boulder and lead, but otherwise, I think it says a lot about the strength of the women's field. Like, I actually asked her after she won gold in Paris 24, I'll ask a slightly tricky question. Like, I could tell that Brooke and Natalia, they were hot on her heels. It was definitely a harder earned win than Tokyo 2020. So I asked Yanya at Paris 2024, like, what do you think of Brooke and Natalia sort of pushing you? Like, do you think the gap is closing? And she said, every year and in the past, I've shown what's possible and how strong you can get. Of course, girls want to beat me. They're training hard, but I'm also training hard. So I'm just always trying to be 2 steps ahead of them. And today was enough. So, she knows that everyone else is training and trying to beat her, catch up with her. But it definitely feels like maybe that pressure is also sort of getting to her a bit. But maybe we also need some harder routes. So, it's definitely like when the routes are just a bit too easy, like and she makes a simple mistake, and it's just she can't get away with it anymore.
But rock climbing will die if people don't top. So, you know, we have to make it easy, apparently. Yeah, I think Yanya is like, so this is this her first season of so she did some comps in 2015, right? So that would have been her first season, but then you delete a season because 2020 really didn't exist. So this is her 10th season. Am I doing that math right? Or is this a complete shambles? Or is this her 11th season? Anyway, she's basically 10 years older than she was when she started out. And I think there's probably got has to be a bunch of reflection at this point of like, okay, who am I now? Who was I before? What are those experiences I remember as a young kid? And how are these people around me living that experience now? And do I see myself in the Minas and the Janes and the Annas and the Keqiaos that I like looked up to and that I was like hungry to compete against? Do I see my work ethic in those people? Do I think they're people that are capable of beating me after I've like blazed an entirely new trail of what it means to be a top female climber in the combined era, which had like really never been done before? And I think I think it probably took a couple of years to become convinced, like, oh, you know, maybe you don't believe that Natalia on Yanya's best day can actually beat her. Maybe you don't believe Brooke on her best day can beat her. But as you see more and more of these competitors coming up, and when a couple of them fall off, like, okay, Natalia and Brooke aren't here, well, there's still Annie and there's still Aaron and you know, Cheyenne is always there nipping at your heels. It's just, you're starting to play the odds more and more. And all of those women have way better coaching support and way better federation support than the people that she was competing against in 2015, 2016. Like, it's real now. They have full-time coaches and they have full-time training centers, and all of them have learned from Yanya's coach, you know, like literally have done workshops with him. They have trained with him and with her. And so whatever trade secrets, whatever things about your personality make you special, you've become the manual for everybody else. And so 10 years in, you're looking at a world you created. All of your competitors are now your creation, and they're coming specifically for you. I think this is when it's going to get serious, and I think the LA medals are going to be the hardest medals she's ever had to fight for. It's going to be a crazy couple of years.
And I think the next 2 years, like next year especially, is going to be totally crazy because so many people are going to be doing World Cups in order to get to the Q Series, which is a terrible name. Like, why? Like, everybody's a bit... so many bad names. But the Q Series, in which everyone will have...
Doesn't make you think of James Bond, you know?
Yeah.
It's a little sexy, a little dangerous. It's what the Olympics need.
There is a show on Netflix called
Department
Q
Q.
Series.
Yeah.
And it's about MI6 nerds making pens that record stuff. What is it?
It's a Scottish detective show set in Edinburgh, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I thought it was a James Bond derived kind of thing. Okay, gotcha.
It did have climbing in it. They filmed at Ratho in Edinburgh, the climbing wall, randomly. Anyway,
that wall would actually, not the wall itself, but that you know, that facility would make for a great Bond lair, you know, like a villain lair, you know, like, and you know, lives in an old quarry that he's turned into like a super villain, you know, hangout. Yeah, that'd be a great spot for that.
Yeah, next year is going to be when people have Olympics sort of tickets start to come up, and you have to qualify for the Q Series in 2028, and you've got all that pressure, and next year is going to be chaos because lots of people are going to have to do a lot of comps. And I think people have Yanya's gotten away with not doing that many comps, and when she does turn up, she's completely fresh. And it's really hard, I think, to beat Yanya fresh. Like, really, really hard. Like, the only time where she's looked repeatedly beatable was in 2019 when she was cooked from the Boulder World Cup season. And in the lead World Cup season, Cheyenne and Jane both beat her, and she kind of looked tired back in that season. And she hasn't really like made that mistake since. And so it's going to be interesting to see how many World Cups she does in 27.
Mm-hmm.
I'll also just point out, and maybe Natalie can speak to this, or maybe she might disagree with, but my understanding is there's a difference, like, you know, coming in fresh, having avoided, you know, travel from competitions. You've had the training cycle you want, you've had the rest cycle. But if you're coming in like fresh and all of your recent climbing experience has been on rock, my understanding is there is a surprisingly hard transition period to get yourself back to excelling on plastic. Maybe she's been, I genuinely do not follow what Yanya has been doing outside. I don't care. But if she is coming off of, cycles of weeks or months projecting stuff outdoors, and then she hasn't had the chance to remember what it's like to climb at the hardest level in history on plastic, that's going to be a tough transition. And so I personally would expect that is a little bit of what we saw in these last couple competitions, is her having to remember, like, oh yeah, climbing hard on plastic is way different than climbing hard outside. There is real competition. The moves are different. I have to dial in a totally different way. I think she probably feels pretty fresh right now, but you just forget like what it is you're actually doing. You just forget what the assignment is, kind of.
Yeah, I think even if there's more of a physical crossover than we might imagine, I think the mental shift of having to perform as she's performed throughout the years when she's purely been focusing on competitions, plus with so many women hot on her heels, I think that's a new pressure. Like she might not have the confidence in herself that she used to have. There's a bit of a mental gap, maybe more so than a physical one. I think that's part of what we're seeing. If her mind's quite literally elsewhere, focusing on outdoor stuff, and then at the same time other people who are purely focusing on competitions are doing really well, then that can't be easy. But I do think overall it's such a good thing for the sport to have such a strong field for the women, especially. We've just not seen this in recent years, and I think it will push both Yanya and the field as a whole. So I think it's really exciting. I can't wait for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think it gives people more reason to tune into the next comps. I think they're like, oh, what will happen, and it's all false hope. She is going to win everything dominantly. Don't worry. But you're inside. You're just not quite sure anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, and on the men's side, Alberto continued his podium run without a gold medal. It's like seven comps with a World Cup medal without a gold. It's like,
I was praying for him.
Yeah, I'm maybe starting to regret becoming such a fan of his. However many years ago that was. Yeah, what did you guys think of this route? Because obviously Neo wins it from last place in finals. He basically does the masterclass, and then we watch everybody else not be able to match him. Did you guys think the route was too hard? Do you think the crux was actually like that difficult? What did you guys take away from it while watching it?
When I watched it live, and I mean, I always do this anyway, like every time someone comes out and gets on the head wall, I'm like, it's too easy. But then this time we saw him get really high, and then my partner was like, oh, they've undercooked it. Like it's going to be 8 tops or however many tops. And then everyone just kept dropping off like flies. And I've never been so wrong.
I feel like the men's has just become so close. Like so often, like we saw this in Copa last year. I think 6 out of the 8 finalists have won a World Cup. And Alberto was one of the other ones who hadn't. And the other one was Putra, who has made finals before. And it's like, okay, that's the sort of world we're living in the men's now, is you can have a final of World Cup winners almost, which means anyone can win. And it's just kind of crazy. But Neil climbed really well and really smooth. And then I had the problem of the problem is when he's hit the high point and then everyone else started falling. It just became a bit boring for me, and it just became a bit underwhelming. And like, okay, like it felt like everyone was kind of falling. Sort of, I don't know. I kind of lost the interest to me, which is very different from the women's. The women's was probably like went to a point of one of the most intense comps ever. With such a tense final, especially with Annie climbing as slowly as she is and channeling Jane Kim and eking out the whole climb as long as possible. But in the men's, it felt, I got a bit bored and underwhelmed.
Were you able to find the humor in it of just watching like a 7-car pileup on the highway? It's like, oh, is this gonna person make the same mistake? Is this gonna person make the same mistake? I don't know. I watched it after hearing you talking about the statistics of someone coming out and winning from last place. So I had the result for the men's was spoiled for me, and that's okay. but it did give me a reason to like really pay attention to his climb and then the others and try and break down what was going on. And I still can't get over like Serrato and Doyen both looked like they were in relatively good shape where they fell, and it was just a mistake it was kind of like the Yanya mistake at the finish hold of the women's route. It was a little bit of you just kind of incorrectly estimated where the good grip was going to be, given this was on a tiny little crimp, so it's a much easier mistake to make than on a giant juggy feature. But it was just a bad grip position, and they popped. But their bodies were in relatively good shape. Like, it's not like they were chicken winging all over like a few of the other guys were at that stage. But I can't, like, Neo was in such good positioning, and I try to break it down, but sadly, in the moment where he makes that crux set of movements, the camera was super wide. So I can't actually see where his heel hook is behind his body. But he made it look like everything was within reach without even trying. Like, he climbed so beautifully through that crux sequence. And I looked it up, and he's like a couple inches shorter than those other guys. So I so badly wish there was another camera angle to look at, because he looked so settled and stable and centered to the point where he wasn't really putting effort to reach out to that. What was it? 40, I guess. 40 was the crimp that they popped off of. It was already in his hands by the time he had reached for it. Like, such like beautiful climbing in that moment. And so it was clearly the setup was what let him take that without losing stability. Like, his core approach to all those dual text volumes underneath him, he just like nailed 100% of what was going on through that sequence. And everybody else was like, their foot placement was a little too precarious, so that if they missed the crimp, which they did, they lost everything. And so I think it's, as much as I do say it is, oh yeah, they just missed, the gripping placement. Neo had the insurance. If he had missed the grip, his body was in such a great spot, he could have tried again for that hold multiple times. And that was, so as much as that was like a very cruxy climb, it's one where when I look back at everybody climbing, I'm like, oh yeah, 100% the right guy won. Like, if you could break that climb down to a 6-move sequence, and Neo absolutely like aced the test for that climb. It was really impressive after looking back at it a few times.
Yeah, I wondered if there was a mental thing as well of people knowing that people are falling off lower down, then just tensing up and not climbing very well, and especially on dual techs, it's just... I'm glad it didn't really exist when I was lead climbing, because it must be awful.
Yeah, especially as now they're putting dual text crimps where the no text is part of the crimp, and so you have to be really careful. Because like on the women's semi-final route, like where Yanya fell, that was going to like this no text sort of crimp, which quite a few people fell. And if you kind of just threw for it, like you were coming straight off, and you had to get your body in the right position in order to then actually hold it and be able to get behind the hold into the boot with some texture, or at least some purchase on it. And so it's interesting to see that kind of coming to lead climbing, which makes sense, right? Especially on the head wall, having some small crimps, which are no text or mostly no text. It's like a good way to force people to have to slow down and punish those who are too pumped and are starting to throw for moves more than they need to.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it was only the 5th time that someone has gone from 8th to 1st. I remember Briançon few years ago, but other than that, yeah, that's pretty rare. It's good on the resetters for getting it right most of the time, not having a reverse competition. Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about speed? The time has come where going under 5 seconds is not enough to make a final.
That's insane.
Truly crazy time. I need to dig up the Wired interview of Alex Honnold from like pre-2020, in which they were talking about how going sub 5 was impossible or really hard.
Oh, yeah.
And now
Yeah.
and now like sub 5 gets you barely into the top 20, which is just crazy. And Yixin Zhao has kind of been threatening. If you look back over his stats from like youth world champs, he's won all of them for like the past 3 or 4 years, and breaking the world record at the Asian Beach Games earlier this year. He's clearly incredibly good at what he does.
Oh, that was him that broke the record a couple of months ago or whatever that was? Oh, okay. I didn't actually put that together. Okay, gotcha.
And then he broke it again in Wujiang. And then he gave an awesome interview. His English was just essentially fluent in English. It was really, really interesting. And it was really, really cool. And it was really nice just to hear and see and not have that barrier of a translator having him be able to express himself, and he was quite articulate as well, which was really, really cool to see, and it's nice to have that style. I just hope that he doesn't go the way of Peng Wu, which is that he will get trained to the point of a finger injury and then loses that magic.
Yeah, well, hopefully, if it's a good team and there's good culture, then that's a learning experience, and everybody kind of uses that as an example to avoid. But yeah, I thought it was a very much like, this was like such a speed final, for both men's and women's. Like, you got some races where it's just ridiculous fall after ridiculous fall. You just see people just, pulling up the wall way too late, and people getting through to like semifinals. You're like, okay, you just lucked your way all the way here. And then also like exceptional races too, like just awesome head-to-head races. I never thought I was going to be, I thought for sure that when Russian athletes came back to World Cups, I wasn't going to recognize any of the names. I thought they would have all retired. So to see Elizaveta like back on a podium after pretty much a 5-year gap was crazy. I thought they were all going to be done. I thought it was going to be a new generation of climbers coming through. That was really neat, just from a historical perspective, to still see some of them survived the 5 years of not being allowed to, follow their particular path and having to struggle in just the kind of like low tier Russian comps. That was super cool. But yeah, I don't know. I think the men's was the ultimate like story, was just seeing such a stacked field of incredible climbers having to confront this. Like, is he still 16? Is that what I understand? Like, yeah, he was born after the Beijing Olympics, which is a hard thing to process. Yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, super cool. I always think there's a little too much hype around, young speed climbers. And part of that is because it feels like, I don't know if this is crazy to say, does it feel like they're a dime a dozen? Like every season there's going to be 2 or 3 teenage speed athletes who do a time that, is just unbelievable. And then by the next season, they've just folded into that, they're just into the fold of, okay, there's 20 guys who can go sub 5 all of a sudden, and it's kind of a crapshoot. Like, I just don't expect Yicheng is going to be, the guy to beat every single race. That would be something that we haven't really seen in speed climbing in an exceptionally long time. So we're saying hello to a new guy who's going to be in the rat race with the rest of them. But I do just kind of like take my foot off the gas, suggesting that he's going to be the guy that everyone has to worry about all year round. Like, they all have to worry about each other.
Yeah. I was really happy for Alexandra Kowalska, because I know she's had a difficult year or so. She was doing a PhD in Edinburgh. Actually saw her like once when training at the Boulder gym. Yeah, she's been focusing on her study. She's really clever, doing other stuff, but to see her come back and win in the first comp of the season, hope she has a good year ahead. Yeah, she seems to be back on track. I definitely, like, she posted last year saying that her head wasn't quite in it because she'd just been focused on studies. But yeah, good to see an athlete doing both things really well. I know it's difficult to balance. So.
It kind of makes a lot of sense, sort of post-Olympic year, to have that year out. A lot of athletes have kind of done that, and it'd be interesting to see how they sort of come back and reintegrate kind of back in the comp season after kind of chilling for a bit. Even Yanya kind of, and Brooke both, even though they both did a few comps, they both went and did other things and took their minds off having to compete and the pressures of that. I do wonder how well that will help them going forward in like a year or two's time, compared to those who have just sort of continued through. I do wonder if some of the athletes, like maybe Erin, maybe last year, maybe pushing for that lead overall and pushing for that, will that help in 2 years' time, or will that actually harm and create fatigue or create expectations which, when everyone else is back, are quite hard to fulfill? It'd be interesting to see what happens. But in speed, yeah, like, one of the things I've been looking at is how many people win on their debut World Cup, which the answer is not that many. He's the 11th person ever. The last person to do it was Jingguo Long, actually. But it happens more in speed than it does in any of the other disciplines, which I find quite interesting. You have 3 in lead, 1 in Boulder, and then you have 7 in speed. So it's. I do wonder in speed whether, if you are suitably fast enough such that you're your kind of comfortable time, which is maybe a little bit slower than your max, is good enough that to get you into like a into semi-finals, then you have a higher chance of doing well. Whilst in Boulder and lead, it's just so much harder.
Well, I think it's also, like if you build a homologated wall in your garage, you have replicated 99% of the comp conditions. So if you can pull off a 496 or whatever in your garage, unless you're a little fragile from the pressure, then yeah, congrats, you've made it to a speed finals, even though you haven't left your house, right? And these kids like Wujiang, like, yeah, he's been doing the world circuit, and the speed comps are ferocious in Asia. So I think, yeah, it's his first World Cup, but I would bet this didn't feel much different. In fact, like Wujiang is my kind of World Cup. It's in a gymnasium, like it is a humble venue. It's probably like, not particularly. Well, I'm sure it's packed, but it's not a huge crowd. I'm guessing some of the international events that he's done in the past, whether it's the Youth Worlds or the Asian Games, felt way higher pressure, felt like much bigger stages than this World Cup did. So I'm guessing this was just another comp day for this kid, and it wasn't too much of a shakeup.
Yeah, it feels different to like step up from juniors to seniors in Boulder and lead, and you've got different difficulties of routes and different styles, and like, yeah, it's just so replicable that you're just doing the same things over and over again, I guess.
But it was really cool to see, see Alexandra Kaluchka become the third woman to go in the 6-1 as well. So Dazak did it at the Asian Beach Games earlier this year, and obviously Alexandra Miroslav set the world record under 6.1. So it's interesting to see them fast, and also interesting to see like going, I think, to make finals you had to go under 6.8 seconds, which was Miroslav's record back in Tokyo 2020, and also Adam Ondera's fastest speed time, which he was extremely happy about in 2020. Now the whole of the women's speed finalists are faster than Adam Ondera is on the speed wall.
That's great.
That's good stuff.
The race between Sam and Yinchen was really, really good. Both of them clearly pushing each other, seeing how fast they could go, and I think that was the world record round. I think
it was the semifinals, where he faced him. Yeah, it
was the semifinal against Sam. Yeah, so and you can see. I think if you're the sort of athlete where the pressure kind of makes you go faster and really builds you up, and you really enjoy that pressure, then I think, which it seems like for him at least in this comp it was, then he's just going to get faster and faster, and it's going to be really hard to beat. It'll be interesting to see what happens when he's not in China, how traveling and dealing with everything else, and just having more comps and having the chaos, which is speed. Because the faster people go, I always wonder, is the chance of making a mistake feels like it goes up.
I just wanted to point this out, just because I don't know if I've mentioned it, but like the number of so you're talking about the number of like new first time winners in speed. I should also just mention, like, specifically for the men, but for the women too, the number of people who are winning speed comps right now, the number of different people is also unprecedented. If you go before COVID, or especially just a couple of years before COVID, then you really notice it. You will get like a new speed winner like once every 2 seasons at most, kind of thing, right? It was a very small club. The comps generally had like 50% the attendance of the ones that we see today. And so when you were a top speed climber, you could expect to win, a few medals a year because there was really nobody else. You could start to rack up a medal count. The idea that, a Sam Watson or Vedrick Leonardo, that these guys might end up being on the like all-time medal counts for speed is looking super, super low compared to the historical counts, because the number of people who are participating and able to win is so big right now. I'm just like looking at my own stuff and seeing how many people are on this list, and it's really just from the last 5 seasons is the equivalent of like 10 years or longer of speed comps pre-COVID. So, gone may be the days of like Sergei Sinitsyn and Evgeny Wojciechowski and Qishan Zhang. Like, this is a very different sport now. I used to use 2013 as the starting date of modern speed climbing, because 2013 was the first season where there were no classic speed competitions. there were still some events, I believe, that weren't actually technically World Cup or world record walls because they weren't tested properly, but it was the right layout. It was the 15 meters and all that. So 2013 was always my like start date. That was my, before Christ and after Christ moment in the speed climbing world. But I'm starting to think that, okay, the shift is actually from when we got serious about the Olympics and COVID happened and Asia showed up and Russia disappeared. Like, this is something that's maybe the actual big bang of speed climbing. 2013 may have been 7 years too early for the way I think about it.
Yeah, it does feel like the Indonesian, Chinese, and American kind of explosion is kind of really changed speed. And which is, whenever America gets really psyched on a sport, the sport is going to do better. And that's one of the biggest problems comp climbing has always had, is that America's never really got psyched on comp climbing. And so it's quite interesting to see the American speed, see Emma Hunt win the overall last season. She had some slips because she's got some new beta in this one, which is why she ended up last in qualies. And Sam Watson and Zach Hammer leading the charge on the men's. And Isis made her final again and made it into top 8 as well. Isis Roththorpe, as well as like the Indonesian and Chinese, who are completely dominating. And it's like having that, and Europe is slowly catching up with them. It feels like, and each time they catch up, Indonesia, Asia, and US just push slightly further ahead by a tenth of a second or so.
Yeah,
and
he may not be pushing boundaries, but if you make a mistake, Michael Halm will take your semifinal spot. So look out, he's there too.
That's always been the case in speed, right? Like, it's always been the case that if you mess up, then you will get punished, and they train that. And yeah, it's one of the joys of speed, is that chaos, which is what makes it quite so exciting. Watching a speed finals is so fun.
It's too stressful for me. Too brutal. I was British speed climbing champion once, but it's ironic because I'm such a sloth, so I don't. But it's fun to watch.
My favourite stat about Ben Moon is that Ben Moon has a Speed World Cup medal.
Yeah, he does.
Where?
He does.
Oh,
Give me 5 seconds. Give me 5 seconds. Where Ben Moon, 3rd place in Nuremberg, 1993. Oh, and 2nd place in the Black Sea. It was they called it the Black Sea, but it was in a resort town in Bulgaria. I want to say Altai, but I feel like that's not even the right country. But yeah. Good for Ben, man. Good for him.
That's cool.
That was the true combined era, when it was when rather than people winning Boulder and Lead Cups, you had the guys who would somehow win a Boulder and a Speed World Cup. And that was the let's call that the origin of combined climbing.
You mean lead and speed, right? Back then, we didn't have Boulder till 2000.
No, not really, because there would be events where you would have lead and speed happening at the same time. And you're right that bouldering wasn't a World Cup discipline until 98. But you look at before the current combined era, where now it's kind of it's impressive, but nobody's really jumping over the moon if you win a lead and a boulder World Cup. There's a handful of people that have done it now. But to look back at the people who had won multiple events before, Thomas Alexi, who is now just another guy on the route setting circuit, he was one of the first people to win a gold in 2 different disciplines, and it was boulder and speed, It was just those weird moments where if you had the power to be a good boulderer, you could show up to a classic speed wall where you'd never seen the climb before. And I think people forget that about 90s speed and 2000 speed is it's a brand new route probably, and nobody's dialed in the beta. So it is kind of like a boulder problem. You're just putting as much power as you can into the route. So yeah, anyway, that's my revisionist history, is that the original combined was a mix of boulder and speed. But yeah, anyway, go Ben Moon. Jackie Godoff as well, actually. 2nd place at the Speed World Championships. Yeah,
because what's his name? Hans Florin beat him, didn't he?
First ever world champion of speed, yeah. Yeah, which made sense. That, I think at the time, that really felt like, okay, speed climbing from outdoors and speed climbing indoors is, they share a lineage, which obviously at this point they don't. But back then it felt like these are, we've connected the indoor and outdoor world properly, but maybe not so much anymore.
In some ways they're similar, right? Because the speed records outdoors are still on the same routes.
Yeah.
Like, how fast can you climb freerider on El Cap, or how fast can you do half dome? It's still the set, or how fast can you do the triple crown?
Yeah, exactly. You'd have to ask somebody else. I don't know how much, how many holds fall off on routes like that. Like, I imagine they're traveled enough that that's pretty rare at this point. But yeah, you're right. It's as close as you're going to get to a standardized speed wall outside. Fair enough.
Yeah, it's one of the challenges of speed, because it's essentially as close to red pointing as you get in a comp situation, and yet that's the thing people complain the most about. Climbs complain the most about is the fact that it's essentially a hyped up red point comp where everyone has dialed it in, and it's just how quick can you do it. But anyway, so does anyone want to say anything else about Wujiang?
I think so.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Let me just double check my notes really quick, see if there's any.
I don't think I had.
No, my notes over and over are just men's 4 zone, men's 4 zone, men's 4 zone. So I've covered everything I wanted to say.
Yeah, Wujiang, Ella Fisher, a bit of a US breakout star. She came 9th. It's not her first World Cups, but she'd gone from like 30th, 40th odd last year. Yeah, to coming like damn near making finals, which is pretty impressive. 32nd, 37th, 40th, 31st, 35th, 43rd, 41st, 32nd, and then 9th in China. So
it took Annie Sanders like a season or two to get into regular finals. So it does feel takes you a little bit of time before you are getting into finals nowadays. Because it used to be that if you were going to win a World Cup or do well, you essentially had to do it in your first season. Otherwise, you probably didn't have a chance. And it does feel now that people are starting to warm up and progress. I don't know if some of that is just they've changed the age, how old you have to be in order to compete at them. At World Cups, I think you have to become 17 now in the year that you are doing your first World Cup, which is why Wujiang can now compete. But it used to be that you had to turn 16. So it's like, so people used to be able to compete from much younger. And so maybe that's just meaning that it's taking a little bit longer. I don't know.
Yeah, she's only 19 still, so
yeah, and it might not be a pattern either. It might just be some people are just on their way, or you might be right. You have to win a World Cup in your first season. So Ella, thanks for trying. Your career's already over. You already didn't clear the bar apparently, according to Rory's stats. Yeah,
it used to. I need to actually look that up properly, but it was very much a feeling like back pre-COVID that if you're going to do well in World Cups, you essentially had to do well quite quickly.
Are there any athletes you're thinking of specifically? Because I think there have been times where I would agree with you. Like when in hindsight, the greatest athletes we've ever seen, yes, when they showed up, it was pretty much instant that you're in finals.
So I guess Natalia she did Vail, I think, like a year or two before. But then like her first full season was 21 and medals, winning World Cups, winning overall. You think of I think Yanya, obviously, but then she was winning medals. She didn't win World Cups, but she won medals in 2015, 2016, Imps and Cranj. You think about Miho, I think, as well, Serato most recently. I feel it's always kind of a feeling of people would do, if you're going to do well, you actually do well quite quickly.
Yeah.
Like I felt this last year with Rosa actually in lead. It kind of felt that if she was going to win a medal, or then she was going to have to kind of do it in that year. And she did at World Champs, which is a great time to win a medal. But Rosa Reka and Slovenian team, it always felt she was making finals, getting to 4th, and she wasn't quite making the next sort of move to get into medals. And it was like her first or second season, her second season, I think.
I think the way you feel about it that is how I think about it too, for women specifically. I do find that I will, after I've seen a woman compete in a semifinals a few times, if they haven't medaled, and this is a bias I hold against someone like Oceana McKenzie, where I've seen her compete for like a pile of years now. And I just say, like a win's not in the cards for you. That's where my bias is mentally, because I've just seen all those other female climbers do that. For men, it does feel differently. Generally, they win later. If I remember right, this would have been like before COVID that I was looking at these stats. But for men, generally, your early wins come in your early 20s, whereas for women, it was coming in your teen years. And so I don't feel the bias as much when I look at men. I'm willing to accept that a guy can be on the circuit for years before getting a win. But for women, I'm almost like, you know what? Yeah, the door has closed for you if you haven't gotten a medal or won something in your first season or two. I wonder if that will change. I really don't know. But that is certainly where my brain is at when I'm like subconsciously judging people, for better or for worse.
Yeah, like for Rosa, she sort of had a full proper season in 2024, and she made in Briançon, the comp, she got a fourth place in Briançon in 2024, that hotly contested comp, just before the Olympics. But yeah, and then she kind of still was doing some of the youth circuit and European circuit, and it was like last year it felt like she was first doing well, and it kind of felt like that was the time for her to move, to make that. Was she going to become a medalist, and was she going to have that chance? And she kind of did. She won that world championship medal.
Then you got outliers like Erin, who took a year or two to kind of build up, like had a youth career as well, but like didn't really make finals or get any medals. But then she's sort of a slow burn, like peaked just at the right time for Paris, and now and last year, obviously. But
and I'll be honest, it might not be an outlier anymore. Like I'm going off of things I looked at years ago, and it was with hindsight. So I was kind of looking at like the biggest names in history, not just the biggest names at the time. So I do have this bias. It is probably not justified, but I'll take a look at it again and see if it still holds up these days. It's hard though. You do need a certain amount of hindsight, right? I can't judge Rosa Rekar's career right now and say whether or not she missed the window. I don't know if she's going to win or not. She could. But yeah, that's what I seem to remember.
Yeah, it's like Toby fits into the category of like Toby won a medal in his first proper season in 2022 in Edinburgh, and that kind of heralded in kind of what came afterwards with him being a big contender on the lead World Cup season. And yeah, I feel like it could be that it is changing, especially as people are starting to being stronger is more important than being light. I feel like that's starting to become a thing, and I think if you're a teenager, it's easier to be light than it is to be strong, just because of. I don't know how you feel about it, Natalie, but it feels like the kind of what's required in the female field is that you need to be a lot stronger than you used to be, and especially in Boulder. Like it used to be in lead, it was something where being light was prioritized more and rewarded more than being strong, and it's really nice to see actually in the last few years that changing.
Yeah, the route settings definitely helped with that, because you can see the crossover between bouldering and lead is so much closer together. Like the lead routes are much more powerful. They've got sort of bouldery cruxes, fewer sort of like shakeouts and heel hooks and stuff. They're just not as endurance based, like crimp fest style climbs that we used to have. And it's definitely for the better. You need weight, you need power to build momentum, and you can't get away with not being healthy anymore, fortunately.
Well, that was a tangent which we went down. But yeah, I think things are changing, and I think it is now that you can kind of slowly build in more than you used to be. I think in the past it was very much if you either had the talent or you didn't, which is a good thing, I think, because I think it rewards people who work hard more than those. Yeah, not that some of those people who had talent didn't work hard, but I think it shows the maturity of the sport.
I guess there's been some questions and debate around the reinstatement of Belarusian athletes under the neutral athlete criteria. I actually asked Serhiy Kazbekov, the head of the Ukrainian Sport Climbing Federation, for a comment, just for their perspective on it. He said, from our side at the Ukrainian Mountaineering and Climbing Federation, the current IFSC, or World Climbing Neutrality criteria, feel like they're full of dangerous loopholes. Our position hasn't changed, and we've already shared plenty of evidence with the IFSC about this. You simply can't look past active military contracts, ties to state-backed military clubs, or government funding just because an athlete claims they are not in active service. In these regimes, sports and the military go hand in hand. Allowing these athletes to compete completely defeats the purpose of being neutral, in inverted commas. It's really concerning to see international federations losing their independence. They seem to be blindly following IOC guidelines instead of standing up for ethics and the safety of clean athletes. Because of this, and especially after the recent troubling moves regarding Belarusian athletes competing under their national flags again, we're putting together a unified official appeal This will be a joint high-level statement from the Ministry of Youth and Sports of Ukraine, our National Olympic Committee, and us at the UMCF. We're in constant touch with our European partners, coordinating our next steps. We'll be using every platform available, including the upcoming Extraordinary General Assembly, to push the shared stance and demand a much stricter, more transparent vetting process. We truly believe that as long as hidden military contracts and deep state ties are ignored, the integrity of international climbing competitions is compromised. So it's not just about the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine, it's also about other conflicts that are happening across the world as the international rule of law seems to be degrading, and there's just a lot of debate about, Israel, the USA. There's been a few appeals put in by different federations for different countries, USA, Russia, Israel. There's just a lot of people who are debating whether athletes from these countries should be competing at all, even under the neutral athlete status.
Because they changed it in October last year to just exclude people who are actively part of the military on active service. And they also have to have not expressed any support or promotion of the armed conflict as well, at least in the neutral athlete rules.
Mm-hmm.
From my understanding, you're saying people can technically be in the military, but you cannot be in active service. I don't even know it, because I know sometimes when you're in active service, you do come home for rest or whatever. So you can have a uniform in your closet. You can be in a position where you may be called upon and whatnot, but so long as you're not actively out there, in a role, you're now allowed to compete.
Yeah, I think it's trying to square the circle, because lots of climbers are supported by the military and employed by the military. This is true, like France, like Ukriaine is supported by the military.
Yep.
Yanya used to be supported by the Slovenian military. Austria, it's true as well. Like Jakob and Jesse, they're all supported by police/military.
That was one of the best, one of my favorite moments each year in competitive climbing was when you would see all of the climbers go to the World Military Games, and they would all show up in their fatigues and their military uniform. And it was just kind of like a funny, juxtaposition to what they're normally wearing. And at the time, it didn't carry a ton of geopolitical weight. Of course, that's completely changed. But yeah, there's a ton of these athletes are military people. It makes me sound ridiculous, but yeah, a ton of them are involved.
It makes sense from a mountaineering point of view that the military would support mountaineers and people who would fight in mountains and support in mountains. And you've seen in Ukraine, Natalie, you've written about this, about some of the top climbers in Ukraine going and being part of this in special military groups in fighting in the mountains.
Yeah, there's unfortunately a lot of climbers who've been killed fighting in Ukraine, fighting the Russian army, and it does make it difficult. I think maybe we all have different opinions on it, but no matter what you think politically, probably one of the most important perspectives is probably, how does a Ukrainian athlete feel competing alongside a neutral Russian or Belarusian athlete? Maybe that's the perspective we should consider first of all, and then the wider geopolitical, what does this athlete represent by technically representing Russia? What message is that sending out? No matter what they think personally, unfortunately, they are part of a system, and they are being used as pawns technically by governments. I like to think people aren't the governments, but it's all about symbolism and state ties. And I think the situation for world climbing and other sports federations, it's only going to get more complicated as geopolitical situation changes. And this extraordinary General Assembly, as Cedric described it, this is an event that's going to be held in July. I'm not sure if it's in person or online, because it was meant to be at the AGM in Saudi Arabia, but that got cancelled due to geopolitics in the Middle East. So that's going to be an interesting discussion. I'd really like to. I doubt that it'll be made public, but it sounds like something worthwhile. Whether it will come to any conclusions, as I said, a lot of the federations have put in various appeals against different nations, different federations. We'll just have to see what happens and hopefully have some transparent processes and outcomes from that discussion.
So after the Saudi Arabia meeting was cancelled due to the war in Iran, they, being it in person, they decided to postpone it originally to, I think, later in the year, like December or sometime. And then these countries asked to have an EGM, which is happening in July, to kind of discuss the politics of it. And you have these two sort of contrasting views, I feel like, with sport. You have the sport as a privilege, which countries get to take part in, and therefore, if you aren't willing to play the rules of the international game, then you don't get to take that privilege and take part in that. And then you have very much the FIFA is going to have this with the World Cup, with Iran competing in the USA in the World Cup, which is like that. Yeah, two countries potentially still at war, competing in football in your own countries. Very weird situation. And that the IOC and FIFA and a lot of these bodies view sport as a vehicle to get people to cooperate and to come together and to kind of to stop wars happening, for it not to be so geopolitically difficult, to kind of like mend and to kind of bring people together. And that's very much the message which they talk about, and that's why they do. And there was that challenge of how do you view sport and competition on an international?
It's such an ideal that we should really uphold, of like sport bringing people together and it being all about peace and togetherness. But unfortunately, when you've got bad state actors manipulating it and using it for their own militarized ends, it's never going to be a good thing. So yeah, I think it's a really important discussion to have. I'm glad that the World Climbing are taking it on. It's important.
It is. We'll see what comes out of it. World Climbing, I foresee, were really good at the start of the Ukraine-Russia war, being one of the few federations to sort of ban Russian and Belarusian athletes very quickly. And it's kind of, the IOC has left it up to federations. The Paralympics Committee has already said that all Russian and Belarusian athletes can compete as neutral athletes. Like that happened in the Paralympic Winter Games earlier this year, whilst it's been left up to federations so far. I'm sure there is pressure, if you're part of the Olympic committee, Olympic family, to follow in the whatever the IOC say.
I think in some ways the decision has kind of been accelerated by all the other conflicts, and is it an easier out for them just to let Russia and Belarus back in because so they don't have to handle other countries? There's a lot going on, but all worth talking about.
Okay, do we want to talk about overalls and who we think is going to do well in the overalls?
I will participate if you want to. I've never found much success in predicting how overalls go, mostly because people don't show up to a lot of stuff. So It's always, it's been a tough one for me, but yeah, I'll give it
What do we win? What do we win if we get it? 9,000 euros.
Yeah, there's Euroholds will do a separate prize just for us.
It's nice to see the series winner actually get a amount of money which is publicized, which is more than just winning a World Cup, which is actually nice to see. It
just feels like it's at the wrong time, unfortunately. It's like, you know what? It would have been great if this existed, pre-19. Reward the people who were winning what was in a lot of times the actual most important prize. But now it's just like everything is so deeply in the shadow of the Olympics that it's like, okay, great. This is a little money that's going to go towards climbers. I got nothing wrong with that. But the last bunch of years, the people that are like podiuming on the overall, I think you could nitpick a lot and say these aren't the three best climbers of the year necessarily. It's too much down to who's actually showing up to events and who's not, and it kind of ruins the gravitas because it just doesn't line up with history. You just look at the names and you're like, that doesn't correlate with who the best climbers are, which is why I always liked it in the past. It felt like it was some kind of representation of who was really the best climber of the time, rather than the World Championships, which had a little more, variance in the results. But yeah, so I think it's a little too late for it to, it's not going to jumpstart the overall into being the most valuable prize in climbing or anything. But it's nice that there's a bit more money in it.
I'm going to go with Annie for lead. She just seems to be on good form, and I think she'll do quite a lot of them. Men. Oh God, I don't know. Alberto. I don't know.
That's not bad.
Yeah, he does do a lot of the comps.
Yeah.
And then Boulder. I just don't know how many Yanya's gonna be.
Yanya's I would get Yanya's not going to be on the podium for any of the overalls, so it just explains why it doesn't work. But yeah, she won't be there.
She's just not doing enough comps. I think she's doing like the only other. So she is down for Prague. She is registered, but she probably won't turn up. But then she's only doing Innsbruck and Copper and Santiago. So in Boulder, she's like doing one, maybe two, if she chooses to do Boulder and Innsbruck. But lead, if it was best 5 out of 6, then I think she'd have a chance of getting on the podium for lead. But
of course,
but because it's now all 6, it's a lot harder.
Yeah,
if you skip.
I just because Natalie did her lead takes, I'm just gonna put my lead ones in while I remember. You stole Alberto from me, so I'm going to settle for Serrato and Raku. I'm going to, nobody's first choice, but I'm going to sell. I'm going to hope he does some comps. And then I'm going to say Aaron McNeese repeats. I'm going to hope that this was just a slightly off weekend for her, and she's back on top after this. Those are my lead picks.
Aaron does have the curse of finishing 4th a lot.
Hey, but if you finish at least 4th every time, you're doing okay. That's pretty good.
Talking of Mr. Consistent, I'll go with Satoshi Yoshida, who will improve on his 3rd place overall last year, and who also seems to be Mr. 4th place. I'm so well in semis in Wujiang, so well he was, and then in finals, it looked like the pressure just got to him, or he just had one of those good semis, not so good finals kind of rounds for whatever reason. But it would be really cool. I think Satoshi has a good chance of doing well in the overall for men. Since I can't pick Alberto, which would have been the one I would have picked because he's just Mr. Consistent. And then for women, I'll go with the slightly boring option, which is Cheyan. I think Cheyan I think Cheyan will do all the lead ones.
Yeah, I feel like she'll be across the whole season.
Yeah, she's not down to compete in Bern for Boulder, so I'm wondering if Cheyan is going to start specializing again in lead. I think it'd be great.
I think I talk about a career that I can't wait to do a retrospective on, of the biggest, she just created such a splash, on arrival. Her first 3 months of world climb were just unbelievable, and since then it's just been a disappointment almost the whole time. If she sees it from that lens, but I'm sure there is that pressure. Anyway, can I go first for bouldering so I get picks before Natalie does? I'm gonna take the Annie pick for bouldering. I think that would be a really fun story. And I'm also going to probably make a mistake and pick Mejdi as my men's choice, but I just want I want him to be at every comp. He's still my favorite to watch. So I'm going to hope he's at every comp. I'm going to hope he makes finals every time, and I hope that gets him enough points to take number 1.
You go, Rory, and then I'll go last.
There's only 3 men you can pick from, so it's really easy. So you went for Serrato and Natalie, so I'll pick Doyon. So we're these are the 3. It's one of the...
Yeah.
I love, Doyon is so good at the physical boulders, and that's really his strength. It'll be really interesting to see how, and then Mejdi really is the best at the hard coordination. And then Serrato is just this all-rounder who is just super, super good at everything, which is why it's so hard to beat him. He does, as you said last year, Tyler, he does need to speed up if he wants to catch Kilian's record of 21 golds. He's only a third of the way there.
I was going to say that's actually a real thing about Janja too, is she is now behind Anna Storr's pace for bouldering, So again, cracks in that GOAT argument just abound.
Yeah, she's still third behind Keqiao and Anna in the Boulder World Cups. I kind of always felt that she's Slovenian, and quite clearly, if she has to pick between lead and Boulder, she picks lead every time. It's very much the Slovenian woman sort of perspective.
Okay, I'll go Serato, seeing as you gave it to me. I was going to pick him anyway. And
It's a pretty good choice. He's won the last bunch of years, right? Like he's
quite good.
He's
I don't
pretty
think
good,
it's a bad
guys.
bet. And then women, I'll go Oriane. I just think she's very consistent. She's a solid bet for like top 4, top 5. So hope she does that a few times, and then we'll see. But yeah, it's definitely harder year for the women's.
Are you guys, like, I might just be reading too much into this, but I'm really liking this Oriane arc over the last bunch of years. Is like, I remember the first impression was she just looks like she's having so much fun on the circuit as a young, like still a kid, like genuinely a kid when she showed up on the circuit, and just having a great time, like overperforming by all metrics, right? And I feel like she's gotten like darker and more serious over time, and it feels like the development of like a really good villain arc all of a sudden. I'm really, really enjoying the potential for this in the future. It's a cool setup for maybe a future storyline.
I feel like with Oriane, she wears her heart on her sleeve, and you can really tell.
And her heart is darkening.
And you can tell when she's pissed off and annoyed, and she's kind of like both at herself and the situation, the result, and she just cannot be happy, and you can really see that. And I like it when like climbers are people and show that they really care, and you see how much it hurts when they don't, like seeing Yanya come down the lead route and you can see her swearing and she is seriously unhappy. It's great to see it when Oriane doesn't even get to zone on the 4th boulder, and you can see how visibly unhappy she is.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's definitely a bit of a expectation that female athletes censor their emotions more. Like, I think they get more flack if they look grumpy or don't smile all the time. So I do like it when people like Oriane just let it all out and just swear, like within reason, like not kicking a chalk bag or whatever. But I think
don't go full Stassi on us, like don't unleash the beast. But no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's what Charlie used to always say. It's like everyone pretends we're all best friends. There is obviously that's a good element of the sport. Like everyone is supportive of one another, and we don't want that to change. We're just having a bit more emotion and like true emotion, raw emotion that's not censored would be good.
I do feel after you take Annie and Oriane, it's like there's like no one obvious to pick out of the women's field. I feel like in terms of like who, like Oriane, like
you don't think Natalie Grossman's going to drop an Instagram post being like, "Hey guys, the beach was great. I'm feeling good and I'm on my way."
She's just not going to do enough comps to like have a chance, especially now we live in there are 6 comps in the season and you don't get to drop one.
Yeah.
It's like she's just still recovering, and she's just not going to. I don't think Erin's going to do that many boulder ones. It's just.
And now you tell me. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm just going to go with. Well, she might do more lead ones, Tyler. I don't know. I know I think she said around British lead championships that she was looking to take things a bit easier this year, but after pushing quite hard last year, because she cared about winning World Cups and winning the lead overall quite a lot last year. But this year, I'm going to mildly annoy you, Tyler, and go with Osh.
Okay, it's your money. It's your money.
My money. We'll go with Oshiyama Mackenzie. She's going to upgrade her bronze from last year to.
Oh, that is true, though. Yeah, no, it's being consistent, showing up. You're right. Like,
she'll be consistent. She's showing up. I think.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see if she can. Yeah, if she can go and get a bronze and get a silver or a gold this season. I think Osh will turn up to a lot of comps. I do feel like sometimes it's a much she has to mental side, and she has to kind of like it's true of all the athletes. So much of climbing is a mental sport in terms of who performs when. And once you get that confidence, you can see people really build on it, and it really helps them grow.
Yeah, she didn't miss many finals last year, so super consistent. It's probably that thing of like once she just having to believe that she's capable of getting silver or gold, and it'll happen, and then she'll just do it more regularly.
And what about for speed? Is it Rory? Unfortunately, you have to go first for the notoriously predictable speed overall.
Oh, God. I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to say Sam Watson's finally going to win it. He cares about it. And I think last year, had he not have had that false start, I think he would have won it. I think Sam really wants to win the overall, so I'm going to go with Sam for speed.
Okay. Any picks for the women's side?
Oh, because Ola's only doing Krakow, so it isn't going to.
Yes,
She also has never won the overall as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
She's quite similar to Yanya in that she cares about winning championships. She doesn't really care.
No, I guess I just thought in like 2023 she must have won it. But yeah, no, you're right.
She nearly won it. She nearly won it, I think, in 24, because she went to China at the very end of the season to try and win it.
Okay.
And then she didn't. I think, something. Yeah, she kind of messed up. And I'm going to go with Dezak for the women. It would be awesome to see Dezak in the top of the series. She's one of the fastest. She has that potential to be the fastest.
I'll go with... Shall I just say a Koitska twin, then I get double them?
No, you got, because I'm picking one of them. You got to pick the other.
Okay, I'll go with Natalie. I'll go with my namesake, Natalie.
All right, you picked a more consistent one. Yeah. I think this is probably a bad guess, but for the sake of seeing, and this is gonna make it sound like I'm a huge like Russia stan, like just parading around with the Putin posters everywhere or something like that. But I'm gonna take a guess, and I don't think she'll win, but it would be really cool is if Elizaveta was on the podium for the overall at the end of the season. Elizaveta Ivanova. It would just be first time in a bunch of years that we've seen Russian athlete in that podium after they dominated for decades. So that would be cool, and I feel like it's as good a guess as any. For the men, I don't know. I still think of Vedrik Leonardo as the guy to consistently just always put up good scores. So I'm gonna pick Vedrik again. Come back after a couple of years, be on top. So Rory, you're gonna have to write all this down, and 7 months from now or whatever, you gotta double check.
It's the joy of editing, is I'll be able to write it all down whilst I edit.
I'll say Yicheng Zhao. Did you pick Yicheng? No.
I picked Sam.
Okay, I'll pick Yicheng Zhao.
Riding the hype. Who knows?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how many people do turn up this year, and how much this becomes the Rock Year Part 2. After last year, where it felt like everyone just went outside and didn't really care as much about comps. But next year will be comp chaos because of qualification for the Olympic qualifier series, 2 series, whatever it's called. Thank you both for joining for this, the first episode of hopefully many. We'll chat about comp climbing and all the things. Hopefully listeners enjoy us and enjoy hearing us chat about comps. So Tyler, the reason that you couldn't watch a lot of the comps live, not just because they're in China, but because you were running your own competition series. So this is Triple Crown?
So I work
in Ontario, right?
Yeah, I work for a small chain of gyms in Ontario in the Toronto area. So we have 3 gyms right now. So we just do a series each year. It's just a pretty typical Boulder comp. So it's your red point scramble qualifiers, and then we do like a World Cup style finals using like 2024 rules. So we're still using like tops and attempts to top and zone rather than point based scoring and stuff like that. But yeah, it's I don't know, like honestly, the first thing that got me excited about comp climbing was the behind the scenes stuff. Like that's a couple months into being a climber, after discovering it in the gym, I was volunteering for comps just out of peer pressure and really enjoyed it. Getting to be the guy sitting, surrounded by just tarps hung up on the wall in ISO with all these climbers who are about my age, who were just like incredibly strong, and just watching what they did in isolation, and then, learning how to judge, learning how to belay and so on. And that really just took me down the path of adoring running climbing competitions. So these comps are like nothing particularly like special or fresh. We're just trying to rebuild a bit of climbing culture in Toronto after COVID really knocked out a lot of the infrastructure and the comps that had been around for a long time. A lot of them just died in those kind of like there was basically 4 years of no real competitions in the greater Toronto area. So we're just trying to bring it back, and it's a blast. I think the fun thing for me right now has been trying to get other people involved in the roles, because I've always ended up doing a lot of the setup and the logistics stuff, and then I have to wrap up the weekend by emceeing the finals, which I really enjoy. But it just means it's a lot. And this was the first time I got somebody else to MC for the comp. I had somebody else kind of managing the day-to-day, like, pre-organization of everything, and it was really fun. I actually got to enjoy being at the event. I had a really good time just hanging out with people climbing and watching them doing their attempts. And then in finals, I got to watch. It was a blast, man. It was really cool.
What was so is this what, so you have a separate comp at each gym, or is it like a series, or is it just like one big comp?
Yeah, there's no series component really. That might be something we do in the future, but at the moment it's really just 3 stops. So we just do 3 competitions. They all have their own individual prize pool, but nothing accumulates from comp to comp. Maybe that'll happen in the future. The guy that owns these gyms was the man who started what we call Tour de Bloc in Canada, which was effectively kind of the Canadian version of the ABS in the States. And it's really the comp series that taught everybody in Canada how to run a boulder competition or how to be a boulder competitor. He was just organizing comps across the country, and it was the series that fed our national team for quite a few years as well. Just, being run off the back of one guy who was just really dedicated to that kind of thing. He's the same guy that brought World Cups to Toronto from 2013 to 2015. So it's fun. We have a good team of people at this gym who happen to be like, competitive bouldering, especially, is like in the blood of a few of us. So we're a bit of like a powerhouse. And unfortunately, as we all age, there's that brutal reality of, you look at you're looking at your balance sheet the whole time, and it really conflicts with your competition optimism. You always want to, increase the prize pool, increase the budget. But as you get older, you kind of start paying attention to like what actually makes money, what costs money. So we're playing it relatively conservative, relatively grounded.
I always feel like one of the challenges climbing has, for some reason, climbing comps never seem to actually make anyone any money, which is such a big shame, because in so many other sports, it feels like comps do make money and it can work as an events business and you can actually function. But it feels like so often, for some reason, we don't want to charge for climbing comps. I don't know whether it's because we just don't feel like anyone will ever turn up unless it's free, which is an indictment of what we think about competitions, really. Is it looking to be more sustainable, or is it looking just to be like a feeder or just be something which the gym cares about?
I think sustainable is probably a little too generous for like what's possible with the like type of resources that we're willing to spend. Like if you're running this from the perspective of being a climbing gym, you obviously have your base operations of needing to be open for members and for customers. So you take a hit on that, not just being closed for the competition day, but usually either a full or partial closure for a couple days leading up to it for the setup. And the comps, specifically with the route setting, is just really labor intensive, especially if you are doing a scramble competition that's going to involve a lot of boulders going up. Route setters cost more than they did in the past. That's true for pretty much everything about climbing, but you're paying route setters more. They have better working conditions than they did in the past. They're not expected to, that when I was route setting, it was implied that for 2 days you were sleeping over at the gym, and it was a thrill. I loved every second of it, but I was also a lot younger and I didn't know any better, and it was just a lot of fun. But now, rightfully, the route setters expect to go home to their own bed in between nights and get some proper rest, and have a team that's sized correctly so that they can forerun things, effectively and create a better experience. But it just does mean it's an expensive event to run. That's just true. So sustainable is a little too far. But if you say, what are the things we care about? What makes us feel proud? What kind of how do we live our values to the community around us? And if one of them is climbing should be, a positive athletic experience, and competition should be something that is like a positive growth experience for people, deciding to spend a little bit of money for an event like this once a year, I think, is a completely worthwhile event to do. So I think it was, I always think it's worth it. I have a lot of fun, and it's just showing people a different perspective of climbing, because I think that's something people like us might forget is what it means to be in your first month as a climber. And you forget how big this sport is, how many different avenues you can take to fall in love with climbing. It's not just outdoor and indoor, but there's competitive and so many different approaches to how you make this a part of your life. So I think using it as a showcase to give people a new way to fall in love with it is really important.